What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, me and DB are going to go over the market. The week just opened, monthly closes coming in, FOMC is this week, government shutdown potential on Friday. DB, say what's up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the new market overview with Woods. Let's get into the charts.
I'm going to go over BTC right now on the one day, kind of just explain my thought process and how I see things here, talk about what has happened, certain reactions that have taken place, and where we're at right now before FOMC actually happens on Wednesday. So the one day demand that I've drawn right here has been acting as a good level of resistance. When we close on the top end of the midline as where I see a pivot, if we were to close down to the low end, we'd start to go towards the lows here. We hold in the midline and we expect upside. Right now, we are still printing higher lows. We're still holding this level for me. And I tried some longs yesterday, was able to run that 86.2 entry up to the current highs at 88.8. I even scalped in between. And right now, I think it's a spot of patience. We have easy lows down here that could get targeted, just as easy as highs to get targeted on the one day. And for me, that just preaches patience. With that being said, when I scroll down to the lower time frame, and by lower time frame, I mean the 4 hour and the current range that we are actually trading around and this consolidation here, that being from the breakdown that took place in the middle end of November towards the current price action that we're seeing here at the end of January. Again, we have these higher lows that are holding, but we are trading at the middle end of the previous range that we were trading in before we had our most recent impulse and uptrend up towards 98K. We also had previous FOMC price action at the top end of this range here, and the liquidity I see building up on the low end. There's a possibility that we get a retest at and above 90K. We have a wick here that I could see get retested. I don't know if we'll print a lower high, but for me, that's a short. If we get a reaction on the low end, that being a potential sweep or retest of daily open and a push upwards, potentially holding a cheeky higher low, that's a good opportunity for a long right now until I see a breakdown at the top end of this zone. For me, as long as this zone holds, granted, we did have RSI divergence confluence yesterday in line with the sweep of these lows here and a closure above that sweep. That's an SFP. That's an RSI divergence. We saw that in the price, as well as us testing the top end of the zone. For me, that was a good level, too long. Granted, I got half fills there, which is why I looked for long entries today. And we got a nice long entry at 87.4. That was the pivot, and we're reaching back down at that zone already. If you're not securing within these lower time frame levels of chop, you are going to be round tripping. I think with everything going on as well this week, as well as US-Iran conflict and all that stuff, you know, there's a great potential of chop to think you're going to get an easy swing in these levels with everything that I just went over and all the reactions that I see taking place. I mean, just look at this flip back down of the 90.5 level that flipped us up for higher. That's an aggressive reaction. We saw that on a Sunday. And right now we're seeing the Monday price action just take effect. There's also potential that, and I want to take a look at this, of course, that the Monday range sweeps where I see liquidity piling up, right? So I'm going to be looking out for that. And until we get closures below 86.4, let's call it 86.2, I'm not super convinced that we're going to reach 84.4 just yet, but 84.4 is the next level for me. And that will be a sweep of the most recent lows that we have here. And then we have these lows down here, and then we have 80.5K. So these are clear levels for me. Before we can even look for higher, we have to configure these plans because the range is chopping so tight, and before the next move happens, a certain reaction is going to happen before that, and that's what I'm prepared to take action on. I want to hear your take on BTC first before we jump into other things.
Okay, so good analysis on BTC. Let me share my view on it and a few other indexes. So on more higher time frames, I have very, very similar levels to you. I generally do think that this 88 to potentially 89, 90K zone is currently a resistance zone. Maybe we can extend this a bit higher towards 90K as well. So overall, this area here, we did have that daily bearish flag that we discussed in the last video, right? So we currently found acceptance below it. We did a bearish retest of these previous range lows, and then we broke down, right? And here we did have a few lower time frame divergences on the 4 hour and the 8 hour, which was a good spot to long, but as long as this area here is not reclaimed, I'm still rooting for lower, because if you just zoom out, this is a clear breakdown, for me at least, a clear breakdown from this bear flag. So I'm going to treat it as such. Overall, you know my macro view on BTC and the market. I do think that pops are for taking profits and for shorting. The last rise that we had towards 98k proved that convincingly, from where alts already dropped 25-30%. So relief rallies will happen in my view, but they will be for taking profits and for shorting, especially alts. Now what we have here is very interesting, because if we do not manage to flip this area here, I do actually like your zone as well at around 84,500, right? And we could potentially print the 12-hour bullish divergence there as well. So this would be my next area of interest for longs. We did have yearly open here, but we're currently trading below it, so not really a big area of interest anymore. So this is what I'm looking at, either a pop towards 88, 89, 90, this zone, give or take, with a few lower time frame bearish divergences to take some shorts, or for longs I would be looking at this area here. And then if this area here is lost, as you mentioned, we do have this 81, 80k zone, but as long as we don't have higher time frame divergences, I think these are just scalp zones, because on the greater scheme of things, we have to assume that this is going to be a full breakdown, and how far this can reach in the future we don't really know. So I'm just going to play level by level. Let me just briefly cover Ethereum as well, because it looks very, very similar. And we also have some form of bear flag on the 12-hour, on the daily as well. We accepted below it. We traded a few hours below this area as well. We're not able to reclaim this 3040 zone, which was resistance. Broke down into a very, very big level of interest at around 2,800, 2,780. But here again under resistance at 2,940 to 2,930. We did have a 30-minute bearish divergence here today, which was a good scalp short. And similar to BTC, what I'm looking at here is that if we don't manage to reclaim this area, we might as well go for lower levels, potentially even 2,700, print a 12-hour bullish divergence, and then take some longs, and which can either be scalps or swings depending on how the structure evolves. So this is my thought on the two majors. Looking at an index as well, USDT dominance. We have been talking about the possibility of this turning into a bullish flag on several time frames. I think the 3-day is very interesting specifically. Let's not discuss all time frames. I'm discussing the 3-day because we recently had a 3-day bearish divergence on the index, which helped with the relief in the market, right? But what we actually did is that we went towards 580. We were not able to go lower than that, and confirmed that this is some form of range channel, bull flag, whatever you want to call it, right? Yesterday we rejected at this area. If you zoom in a bit, you can see that we rejected at these range highs, give or take, right, with these divergences. So it was a good area to scalp long, because I think the invalidation was very, very easy. But on the greater scheme of things, where we have to understand where we currently stand, right? And we discussed this a few days ago when we were still trading around these levels here, that this was going to be a possibility that we need to watch out for. And why this area is important is because in the last 2 years, we have, or the index in this case, has rejected from the zone multiple times, providing support to the market, right? And whereas previous reactions from these zones have been very, very strong, specifically the reaction here in August, for example, September 2024, now we are sort of consolidating below this area, right? And potentially forming a bullish flag. So this is really a do or die level in my view for the market, because if we start reclaiming this area, I think we have to assume that this can go into a new uptrend, and this would go in line with BTC breaking below that bear flag, right? So it is very important that when you take longs, you have your invalidations in place, right? Do not overexpose. And if we get this breakout at some point, I think shorts will print heavily. So this is what I'm currently watching in terms of indexes. One more index that is very interesting to me has been the others index. We have yesterday reached some form of support, printed a 12-hour bullish divergence. So depending on BTC, I think alts can rise a bit in the near term. My favorite area of interest for shorts would still be at around this 215 to 217 zone, which is a resistance area, potentially with a few lower time frame bearish divergences, such as on the 2-hour or the 4-hour. And for alts, basically this is also a do or die level, because if we start finding acceptance below this area, I think we can see significantly more weakness in the altcoin sector. And yeah, this is pretty much all I got in terms of indexes. Really don't want to go more in depth into that, because we also covered many of them in the last 2 videos. Apart from the charts and indexes, we need to be aware that this week we have the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, right? So the Federal Reserve is expected to not change interest rates, so they will remain unchanged, the 97% probability. Market expects no change. Anything else other than unchanged rate cuts will lead to a lot of volatility, but it's rather unlikely, because the Federal Reserve never goes against the consensus of the market. What will be important though, and what can be a source of volatility, will be the press conference, right? As per usual, Powell will be speaking at the press conference. He will be talking about inflation, he will be talking about economic growth, and he will be talking about the outlook for 2026, whether the Federal Reserve plans to cut rates more or hold them steady. What we don't want to hear, if we want to remain bullish in asset markets, not only crypto but other asset markets as well, is that the Fed chair talks about rising inflation and that inflation is becoming a problem, and that this could potentially lead to rate hikes at some point, because there's nothing worse for assets than rate hikes, right? This is what shapes macro cycles. Usually we go into a strong bear markets when central banks are hiking rates and draining liquidity from the market. So that's something we don't want to hear. It is rather unlikely that he will say something in that regard, but it is important to be prepared for any potential outcome, right? So as I said, for January, we don't expect a rate cut. For March, there's 84% probability that we won't get a rate cut, but what will be important will be the probability for all the remaining months and potentially going into next year, which I do think will influence the macro trajectory of asset markets.
Yeah, I like your outlook on everything, especially the macro stuff. We spoke about a lot of things in the last video. It's always good to see a quick update, especially when we're trading these intraday chops, seeing the levels that have reclaimed, seeing where we traded at previous, where we could potentially trade at in the future. It's all relevant. All past price action is going to dictate the future. And what we're seeing from USDT here is it rise and it's in an uptrend, right? And it's looking to consolidate here with BTC at support. It's rejecting, giving BTC a little bit of room to run. There's a potential that it rejects down to this flat candle low here and looks to sweep it. In that case, gives us a little room to pop. But there's also a chance that we move up towards the highs first, sweep that way before we revert down to the lows. And there's always a potential of continuation, especially in uptrends like this. That being said, this is all in the weekly time frame, and this is something that I'm looking at, especially to position for the next move. In my opinion, before the next move happens, there's going to be a lot of chop, and with that being said, I'd like to act on extremes. So let's take a look at Ethereum here. Jumping a nice clean fresh chart. We had this really hard rejection into the end of last week's close. And I mean, it's really heavy. We haven't really seen a heavy candle. I can't call it a flat candle because it's not. We did open up a flat candle to start the week here on Ethereum. So there's a chance for me that we are going to look for lower, meaning that if we do pop before sweeping these lows here to open the week, any pop, like you said, DB, is for taking profit and looking for potential shorts. I was looking for a short today, intraday at 29.33. Hard to hold that opinion when I was long BTC on 2 separate positions. I think my re-entry today was stopped in profit after taking profit on the pop. I am still in from 96.2, so I ended up canceling that bid. Assuming that ETH wants to still target these 31.30 levels, this 3110, 3120 block that I have over here. I wanted this retested before the most recent move and rejection into the weekly closure that we just had. But we still have this trend that we are, looking to reject from. We still have this trend, and it retested, rejected, and we're seeing it look for a pop into the block. So if we do get any volatility into FOMC, let's say we chop here for the next 2 days and we want to get a move up into 3130, I'm going to take that as a level to short if we do get blessed with that sort of volatility. Granted, Ethereum is looking a little less like it wants to make a move rather than BTC, and I'm going to speak about that right now. I think that when you look at Ethereum, it is not out of the realm of possibilities for us to say that we're going to retest this 1-day level of demand below. And if we do retest it, how crazy is the move going to look? Are we going to sweep it? Are we going to hold the top end? Are we going to retest into the middle end? All that's to be seen. That would be retesting this previous range of consolidation before anything happens. Even though we already have retested it, we're so close towards these lows that I just feel like there's a chance for ETH to go lower than people expect these wicks to hold. And that's kind of my outlook on Ethereum. River, absolutely crazy coin, fueled by perps. Not really gonna go super in depth of that. I know I was talking a little bit about it on Twitter this weekend. I got blown out of shorts after hitting a nice long on it, and this is how it looks over here. We saw this coin Penguin go absolutely crazy. I don't have the chart for it pulled up right now, but in my opinion, that's a positive sight to see when it comes to narratives. Even though it was fueled in a crazy way, it is good to see the trenches are back, somewhat, sort of, not really, but we're seeing that come into place. And I want to take a look at BTCD here. I think that it's always important to look at BTCD. Even though it hasn't really moved, we are at this trend level of resistance. We are at this monthly level in this monthly order block. We're trading below it. There's a chance that this wants to turn up in the next, in the next month that we're just closing. And there's a chance that we open up and we want to turn up into it. There's a chance that we want to sweep the lows here. People position into alts maybe, think we're going to go higher for alts, and then we reverse up and we just take over on BTCD. Maybe USDT turns up on BTCD, causing a flash crash in the whole market. All that's to be seen, but it's important to take a look at what's going on with BTCD as always. And last but not least, I'm gonna take a look at Total 2 here. I have this 1 month level of demand here, and we're creeping up into it. We retested the top end and we're rejecting. We have 5 days and 3 hours left to close. I think that Ethereum has a potential of testing that 3130 level because I think that there's a chance within the next 5 days that we look to retest the top end here as well. Assuming that people who have shorted or are looking for shorts think that their invalidation is safe here or think that we're not going to retest the top end here, I think that there's a chance we retest the top end and Ethereum would tie in with a 3130 retest. That for me would be a much better spot of swinging shorts. Granted, we get a pop on BTC to 90.5 to 91K. I think that all this is to be seen. All this is a potential. Appreciate you guys watching today's video. Thank you as always for hopping on DB.
Thank you for having me, and stay safe trading, everybody, and take care. Cheers.
We are ending the monthly here, FOMC this week. Trump's doing his shenanigans. Keep your eyes on for that, especially if you're trading intraday. I'll leave all my links in the description down below, as well as DBs. See you guys in the next. Peace.